and welcome to another Biddle on Saturday night. What's going on,
Yeah.
guys?
Hey,
Wow.
we are live again.
We are, and it actually worked, so that's cool.
Excellent.
That's cool.
We are live on Twitch right now as well, so there you go.
I,
Awesome. Well,
I
there's
just
your
want
first
to. I just
test.
want. I just want to point out, Joe. I don't think your speaker's working. Or Mike. I don't think your mic's working, mate.
It's not because I haven't heard you
No, he
since the
tried
beginning.
talking before, but didn't work. No.
So I don't know if you've been hopping, Joe. Seems to be the curse.
So I've
How about that?
so I've been running deep in all week, and that's been running okay. And I've made a few observations about Deep End Rocco, actually, to be
What's
honest.
that?
And well, I've been looking at and you know the full screen menu, and you can drop the menu down and all that, so you can make it smaller.
Yeah.
Just looking at their full screen menu, they have a category. You can change it from just full screen icons to with the category list down the side. Now, I'll tell you, if Gnome could do something like that with their full screen, I think that would be just advantageous to everybody and would just add another dynamic to that desktop, don't you think?
Well, to be honest with you, Colin, I have not gave Deep In a really good try. I mean, like I probably
Right.
had it on for maybe 10 minutes.
Right.
Ever. So, I mean, I know, you talk about it, a lot of people talk about it and say about it, but I'd have to actually try it to give you a
Right.
good, honest opinion about it, man.
Wouldn't it be nice if the GNOME full screen, when you hit the Windows button or the super key, give you a category list? I mean, because it doesn't have any category list unless you install an extension, right? So that would
Yep.
be something that would be pretty cool for the GNOME desktop, I reckon.
It would be cool to just have the setting available if you wanted it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, me personally, I would much rather have my favorites come up first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a good point.
So, I mean, if you had the choice, that would be awesome.
It doesn't Kubuntu do it that way? That when you have the
Yes.
full screen mode, I think you get sort of like categories, and you get favorites, and then you get all the other bits and pieces.
That's correct. Yeah.
See, one thing with this chat, Zeb, is you
Yeah.
don't see the user icons, the YouTube icons.
Oh, really?
All you see is like a YouTube icon beside everybody's name, because I guess it's trying to separate the Twitch chat from the YouTube chat, so you would know what it is. But like you don't see any user icons.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's not as good then. Yeah.
Not quite. Let me see what the other one looks like right at the moment.
Anything to add on the volume or no?
Yes, you're right.
Better.
Now, Joe.
Okay. I had a setting that wasn't there, I guess.
Yeah.
but that's all
Same. Yeah.
I don't know why that happens. The only thing I do now different is I'll go into Pulse Audio and I'll just click and mute the mic when I'm not using it now, because I hate the idea of watching the bar go up and down when I'm not really using it. But I guess I shouldn't worry about it because this is Linux, right?
What are you on, Joe? What are you currently running?
My same Ubuntu Mate. I did actually
Mate, okay.
I put Kubuntu 1804 on the laptop. I put it in a virtual machine on this machine and started playing with it and thought, it's not too bad. So then I thought, well, let me load it on some hardware. And it's a USB dongle drive. I didn't put it on the main internal drives, which maybe that was a mistake. But it seemed really laggy on there. It's still on there, but it's because I thought maybe I'd jump in on the laptop on that tonight. But it was just really Windows were lagging open up, so I don't know what's going on with it. But
Yeah.
And
right.
which was this, Joe?
Kubuntu 1804.
Oh,
No. And I think that's why, you guys had that discussion. Well, there's been a number of discussions with a few people on this about, whether it's really a heavy system or not, and talking about resources. But to me, it's never seemed snappy and that kind of stuff anyway. But I always liked it. But it seems like depending on different hardware, it's like every other Linux distro. You know, it's can be finicky on one and different on the other. Hey, look who's in here! Hi, Dolphin.
Dolphin.
What's happening, brother?
He can't hear us either.
He can't hear us either. Everybody has problems first. There's Ryan.
What's
G'day,
happening?
Ryan. How you
Ryan.
doing?
What's happening? Dude, you got Dolphin in your stream, man.
Ain't he great?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Excellent.
What's happening,
How you going, Ryan?
Joe?
Haven't seen you for a
How
while,
you doing,
Ryan.
buddy?
Yeah, man. Hey, Colin, what's going on, man?
Oh, plenty, mate. I'm running, trying quite a few things out, to be honest. There's heaps going on at the moment. So
Yeah.
I've reinstalled 8 partitions on my test laptop. So,
Oh, so,
So,
you've definitely not found a cure for distro hopping, I can see.
no, that's what it's for. That's my hopping laptop, it's called.
And hello to everybody in the chat. I said it once, but then I see a few people came in afterwards, and I see EB's out there and Heather.
Yeah, EB, you coming in or what?
He's got to go to work.
Oh man, that's bogus.
EB does some fantastic streams, man. I just enjoy them tremendously. If you guys haven't checked out his stuff in there, he's so funny.
Oh yeah.
So,
You worked it out yet, Dolphin?
can you hear us, Dolphin?
Well, Dark One's having some issues as well. So
Yeah, he keeps popping in and out. Hey, Simon.
Simon.
Well, then that's got to lead to possibilities of something else that's not our fault, because we normally don't all have these issues, right?
If only we didn't
Yeah, that's
distro hop, our
interesting.
computers would be still.
yeah, right. That's the key.
I'm on the same old.
Yeah, but the thing is, I can't see Dolphin hopping somehow. He's either on MX or he's on Antic.
No, I don't think Dolphins
Yeah,
are
that's
hopping.
true.
Yeah.
So I've coined a new term, extreme distro leaping. And what this is if you have, it's like an esport, all right? If you have something really important coming up, like if you do a podcast or you're going to record a video or you're going to conference with your long lost family members, then what you do is you distro hop an hour before that important task and see if
Right.
you can make it work.
Yeah, and then when you ruin a podcast because of it, you know,
Well, Rocco, it's called extreme for a reason.
Yeah, but wait a minute. You sound like you just described Derek, because isn't that what he did last week? He came in.
yes, that's exactly what he
I think
did.
Derek's on board with extreme distro leaping.
Dolphin, you got your sound working yet?
I don't know. Is it working?
It's
Yeah.
working
Yeah,
now,
we can
yes.
hear you.
I love it.
Man's in the house. Yeah.
What's going on, man?
No, not much. Just happened to be here tonight.
Cool.
Welcome,
Cool.
welcome. We're glad
We
to see
thought you were like distro hopping, but we knew better. You know, because usually people have problems with sound with Zoom if they distro hop. So
Oh, well. No, I actually ran into problems because I plugged in headphones.
So
It screwed up
Yeah,
my
I'm having
pulse
that
audio
problem too.
settings.
You can't do advanced things like that with Pulse Audio. You should know better.
I know. The Yeti's working fine. It's the headphones that were
well, Simon's here, so I can yell at him for the 1804 sound issue that I'm having.
What
Yeah,
was
Simon's just about
broken?
to go.
It just decides it wants to switch outputs and inputs all on its own, just for no
You said
apparent
it's
reason.
Pulse audio.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
That's what
It
it
just-
did to me tonight.
Like if anytime anything system-wise happens, whether I go to suspend or anything, I restart the GNOME shell, it just switches outputs back to the same ones that I don't ever use anyway.
So,
So what's the problem here, Simon? Fix it.
file a bug. File a bug.
Wow, them's fighting words there. File a bug.
Yeah. What's the bug?
Isn't that like read the manual?
Your challenge before you accept it is you need to fix it before the stream ends.
The last time I filed a bug, they closed it because they said it was a duplicate of this other bug to go check that out. And I went to check it out and it said that bug doesn't exist. I
Sounds like,
mean,
Sounds like an automated telephone call. Sends you in circles.
I'm telling you.
Rocco, your experience is very similar to mine. Every time I open a bug, it's always closed as like invalid. Not. I'm like, well, it's valid to me.
It is. It is.
You
not
basically
even-
call me stupid, you know?
Maybe you have to put it in a different language then, or something. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say it's like a whole new ethos. You've got to work out what information they want, how they want it in for it to best work. And your average Joe just can't be bothered with that. No offense, Joe, but you just get on with it. You know what I mean?
By the way, I like your wallpaper. That's one of my favorite ones in 17 there.
Yeah. I mean, I just reinstalled it this week and it just breezed through and everything's working and my sound doesn't switch.
Huh. Imagine that.
And yet the guy who developed it couldn't get his mic going. Or just kidding.
No, that's Zoom. That's Zoom.
Yeah, everybody
Yeah,
has problems with
No,
Zoom
we
for
all
some
had,
reason.
we all had issues tonight.
It's great
So,
once it works.
I contacted you, Simon, on Telegram about Lubuntu Next because all the repos are failing. So is there a fix for that or not really?
But
That's Simon's fault too.
Is that,
okay.
Well, take it easy on him because he's not here that often. We want to make sure he comes back.
No, but funny story. This week we had it was only Lubuntu. 2 different critical bugs that were in only Lubuntu this week, right before the beta was released. So I'm
Right.
like, no, not another bug. No, not another
so
one.
am I just sitting and waiting on this one? It will eventually probably something will happen or
But I don't know what the error is specifically. Like, is it like
okay.
with repositories? It could be, it could be that the checksum verification work, or you have a proxy issue or something like that, where also some mirror maintainers don't like to do the right thing, and so that's another thing as well. So I would try changing my Etsy app sources.list to a different source. So maybe if you're pointing at a different mirror, I would just change it just as a test, just to like the main archive.ubuntu.com or like us.archive.ubuntu.com is what I do.
Right, okay. I'll try that.
So, but
If I can-
with Pulse Audio though, the changes I'm seeing here, we did do a bump from Pulse Audio 10 to Pulse Audio 11 from 1710 to 1804. So that could be some breakage there, but then we can blame upstream Pulse Audio.
Mm.
So,
Mm-hmm. So you can blame somebody else.
You're still going to fix it, right?
You can just switch the blame.
So like the issue specifically was when you said when you unplug a device. What?
It's any kind of system. Yeah, if I unplug my headphones or I plug them in, if I go to suspend, if the screensaver goes on, the lock screens, anything like that, the audio just switches for no apparent reason.
Switches from what to what?
Switches what I want it to be to what it considers the default.
Okay.
By the way, this is happening in Kubuntu as well. Exact same system.
Right, because we share a common Pulse Audio package. Is it happening in Debian SID? That would be another test to see if it's happening in Debian SID. If you just get like just put it on a partition or something. If it happens in Debian SID, we can blame Debian, and I'm scot free.
Wow.
Whoa.
Dolphin, do you see how this works?
We're not the ones that want to do the work here. We want you to do the work.
You roll with
We
Sid, you
benefit
get what
from
you
it.
get.
Has anybody got a buck? Because Simon's passing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll take it. I need it.
I'll stick up for Debian around here. Holy cow.
But
Well, I used to run into those issues, but then what I did was just open up Pulse Audio and disable every other module that you don't want to work. So I disable both my monitors because I don't want the sound coming out of my TV. I want it coming out of my default speaker. And even on the default speakers, I've just made it an output channel. I've even taken away the ability because it's got an onboard sound card, so I can plug a mic into it. So disable that as well. So the only thing I've got enabled is the mic and the speakers. It can't switch to anything now.
I mean, that's helpful if you only have one audio piece, but I've got like 3 different audio DACs and headphones and things that go into my machine, and all this stuff used to work before, but now like it sounds like, even right now with audio, I've had to unplug my amp and DAC so it doesn't automatically switch to it, even though I choose for it to stay on my Scarlett 2i2 interface. It won't stay on it. Like Rocco said, it will randomly at times just switch to whatever the heck it decides it wants at that moment to now be my audio player.
Right. So you have different outputs for different types of audio, yeah?
Yep, exactly. And then I have speakers that are connected in as well. So it basically decides it wants to choose, and then it will turn on two mics, as you guys experienced when we were recording the podcast. It sounded like I became a dragon. It was like it just turned on my webcam mic and my Scarlett mic randomly, and it's just like,
yeah. There's Ryan talking like this.
It sounded really
That's
nice.
a stereophonic sound.
Got Ryan.
I mean, the audio is just so bad lately. I don't know what's going on with Pulse, but I'm going with Scratch Jaw and going back to Jack because Pulse is just dead.
Is anybody having a flashback to like 10 years ago when all you used to hear about was complaint about the sound system?
And why isn't it fixed yet?
Yes,
Simon hasn't fixed it.
I'm telling you, Rocco. Okay, but here's the thing, though, Rocco. If you test it in Debian Sid and it works completely fine, then you can blame me. Blame me all you want if it's Debian Sid, because then I can figure out exactly what the problem is.
There's Dolphin works in Debian
Sid.
Wait.
Give him time to give a rebuttal. The guy's turning beet red over there.
You have to rename the stream Blame Simon.
Yeah. If anyone just tuned in, if you're having any audio issues at all in Linux, please send your tickets to Simon Quigley, and he will respond to them immediately.
Okay. But first, test if it works in Debian Sid, and if it works in Debian Sid,
that's too much work, Simon.
I can't even fire up my Annex install. We didn't even put all Pulse Audio on Annex. It's still ALSA straight up. You know what doesn't happen? Doesn't switch.
Whoa! Shots fired.
Wow.
It also sometimes doesn't play audio.
But it doesn't switch. I mean,
it doesn't switch.
Yeah.
Well, it may be better. I mean, really, it's the same, right?
Yep.
It's no worse.
All I know is there's a great mystery plugging in a non-Pulse audio system into my HD TV. Who knows where the sound goes from there? I don't know. It's hard. You got to know stuff to do that with ALSA.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Zeb, you had said about opening up Pulse Audio and disabling every single time I opened up Pulse Audio, went into and tried to disable, I would mess something up. I don't know what it was, but I would mess something up. I don't know why. I mean, it wasn't like I was just randomly hitting stuff, but every time I opened that up and did something, it would be completely messed up after that.
Maybe you need Justin to teach you how to use Jack like he did Desk Geek that time.
Yeah, I stopped using Jack because I switched back the audio interface because the one I had that needed Jack broke. But now I decided after today that I'm just going to go back and install that stuff Scrap did with me because I just can't stand Pulse Audio. It is an absolute disaster. It's always been a disaster, but it's way worse now than it's ever been.
So when will Pulse Audio become a part of System D?
Crickets.
Either that or all of our audio channels switched.
Where's the sound effects, Rocco?
I don't have any, dude. I don't have a soundboard. If I had a soundboard, it probably would switch on me anyway. So play random sounds or something stupid.
Oh Lord!
Can
Just
you
saying.
all hear me?
Yeah, Lamer, what's going on?
Not much. Just got Zoom installed on Fedora and finally got it working.
Well, Zeb wants to know how.
Well, yeah. What did you do? What's this
I
touch
posted
config Zoom thing?
I don't know. I just saw it on Ask Ubuntu and copy and paste in the terminal and it worked.
Fine.
So you consulted Ask Ubuntu.
Weren't you the guy said never copy and paste anything?
No. But you consulted Ask Ubuntu for a Fedora problem. That's
It's amazing.
yeah.
I was scared to do it.
Won't launch over there on Fedora without the comp file being present, huh? So touch just makes a blank file with the .comp. Just makes a blank file.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
But maybe the install of Zoom on Fedora doesn't create that file.
But then,
Yeah,
okay,
that's true.
why would
may
it not just do the right thing? Like, why does it expect it just to have a blank file there and not just put anything in there? I mean, is there anything in that file? Is it
So interesting that this is the bug I submitted for Kubuntu, and that's the fix I used to fix it in Kubuntu as well.
Oh,
What, for Zoom?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff in mine, but it installed fine on my MX system.
Yeah, it worked fine straight out of the box for me as well, and I'm on a Mex tonight as well.
well? I'm on a
Oh, gold star there, Zeb.
Look at English Bob's chat comment. He's a
What are we looking at?
so isn't he? He says,
Looks
"Oh my
like
God,
Gambino.
looks like the Gambino family."
Love it.
Matt,
Hey,
you
wait a
haven't
minute,
said
none
a
of us
word
are
since
wearing
you've been in
jogging
here.
suits.
No,
We're
I
not wearing
haven't.
jogging suits and gold chains yet.
Matt and I did a collab.
We did.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. So that'll be out sometime soon, I hope.
As soon as he can render it 9 years from now. You know that feeling, Rocco.
I know exactly
Yeah.
that feeling. Hey, I know that feeling when I'm running the app image of Caden Live and I edit the episode and then
It doesn't work.
I open it back up to do something else and it continually crashes over
Which app image are you using?
and over.
Wow.
The Caden Live app image, the latest one.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
what I'm using, but I haven't had any issues at all.
I
Yeah,
know
Rocco.
all about that. I know.
That's
I make
the
these issues up in my
Live
head.
one.
Colin.
Make him up.
That's interesting, isn't it?
I was going to say, so Rocco, you make them up about as much as Pulse decides to make up its mind when it's.
Yeah, just switch them, whenever I feel like it.
Oh boy.
But no, I had to reboot, and I think twice, and then finally it started to work. It's like voodoo, I don't know.
Strange.
But I was able to get the episode edited and done, so that's good.
So no more app image?
Well, I don't know if I want to install the PPA just to get the latest release of Caden Live, so I might just stick with the app image if it's going to work.
which release of Kubuntu?
What?
Or which
No, that's
release?
an app.
Which release of Ubuntu? Or is it a just? Is it
This
a?
is the beta, 1804 beta
So, but it doesn't have the latest version.
of Caden Live.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't even check.
But but you're running the beta and you're saying, oh, but I don't want to have to enable PPA to have the latest version. No, you're running the
Usually,
beta.
yeah, I am. What's wrong with running the beta? Is there
Simon,
something
let
wrong
me-
with
Run
that?
the beta so you get the latest packages. Caden Live should be the latest package. In fact, I can verify for you right now that the Caden Live in the
1712 it should be.
Simon, you
1712.
sound quite upset. Are you okay?
Simon, here's the problem. One problem at a time. We still haven't got our fix for Pulse.
I still haven't confirmed if it works, if it's a thing on Debian SID. So like, but the current version in Ubuntu is 17.12.3. So
So what is this app image that I'm running?
1712.0 it is, according to the website.
Yep. that's what it is.
17.12.0. So that's bug fix versions behind.
Yeah.
Is that so? So you're actually coming up to a case where the app image is older than what's in the archive.
Yep.
Huh. So try installing the one that's in the archive.
That would be too easy.
Okay. All right.
We're playing a new
Alright.
game here, Rocco. It's called Simon Says.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just sudo apt install Caden Live. Bam! There you go.
Thanks,
good-
Simon.
how
What
good
would
do
I
you
do without you?
How good do you think Dolphin's feeling right now? He's like, not a problem in MX, not a problem. Not
You
a
know,
problem in
that's,
MX.
I didn't say nothing.
You didn't have to.
Anything yet?
What was the latest one? I didn't catch it. 1710 something.
1712.
7012.
Dot
0.
3.
Yeah, we're at 17.08 on the MX test.
You're on the
test repo.
RC, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the only problem with running a version or two behind is because some of you might not be able to open files created with the newer one, depending on how far back it is. So
I can see that. Yeah. Although why don't they preserve
no
backwards
idea.
there? Huh.
No
Why?
idea. And I don't know
Why?
how far back it is either, because I think when 1708 came out, there was 1700 something. I forget what the number was, but it wouldn't open the file. So I had to wait. I had to actually go get the app image or wait until they updated it.
So, but it flat out said it wouldn't open the file, or like
Yeah,
quickly, or
it wouldn't open the file.
so it said the file was incompatible, and it said
Yes.
something like that, or just okay.
Yeah, it said it was
So at least
incompatible.
at least they have some error detection in there. That's cool. Okay.
When you run your app image, Rocco, did you just double click the app image itself and run it? Did that work? Because on Deepin that didn't work. I had to actually install Menu Libre and make a launcher from that because it wasn't double clicking and working in Deepin. I don't know why that was, but maybe it's missing something.
It worked in Ubuntu.
Okay, fair enough. Must be a Deepin thing then.
That doesn't happen on MX.
No.
We're a little bit behind on the versions though, so that Debian stable thing.
Yeah, I'm just looking in stable and it's 16.12.2.
Yeah, we're hosting a version. I don't remember offhand. I was just cracking open a Kden Live file. It's just XML. I can't believe the older version won't open a newer one unless there's some particular feature you actually tagged that the older one choked on.
Yeah. I don't know. And like I said, I don't know how many versions behind it was that didn't open.
They do put the version of Melt that you're using in the Kden Live file. So maybe that's a trip. I don't know.
Right.
I was looking at chat and I saw someone mention Rosa LXQT, and I just wanted to say that I'm running right now on my system. I don't know if I sent a screenshot to DL or which chat I sent it to earlier, but I'm running Ubuntu Next on this system right now, and it's great.
It should have been DL.
Should have been. Let me double check that it was DL, and if it isn't in DL, I'm going to put it in DL.
Okay, thanks.
DL should have been the first place.
That's right. Well,
Like,
the problem is,
yeah, it wasn't DL actually. DL.
oh, see how it is? I see how it is.
No, but look, like I have like Ubuntu podcasts, Ask Noah Show, all these channels where I throw stuff at sometimes, and I just forget which one it is. Because there's Rocco, aren't you in Ask Noah? You're in. I think you're in Ubuntu podcast.
Yes,
but
I am.
You get a lot of people that are in just the same amount of podcast or the same amount of groups, and you're like, okay, I'll just throw it in one of them, and they'll just there you go.
Pass it around.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
In fact, I'll even go as far as to ping you with this picture that in Destination Linux. There you go. There you go.
Awesome.
So that's running. That has the Arc theme on it, with the just the spacey wallpaper, and that has the Papyrus icon theme. And I personally use Firefox, although Ubuntu Next comes with Kubezilla, which I also use from time to time. It's a really solid browser. I really enjoy using it. But like I said, Firefox just has, some extensions that I need to use as part of my workflow. Otherwise, there's usual like LibreOffice I have on there, different other things.
Yeah, that looks pretty. Do people actually use 8 virtual desktops?
I use 8 of them exclusively. Wow. 8 of them.
One.
Yeah, that's the first thing I turn off every single time. Put it down to one desktop and turn it off.
I kind of want to use them, because they seem like they would be useful. I just never do.
Or what I tend to do is I'll open up an application, put it on desktop 7, forget I've got it there, and go and open it up somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's why you set your taskbar to show all your apps from every window, every desktop.
Yeah.
Of course, then you fill up the app taskbar.
Yeah.
That's
For
right.
me,
Put
I
the
keep,
second one on.
There you go.
for me, I keep 1, 2, 5, and 6. If you're looking in the corner of my screenshot, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 5, 6 on the very left. So 1, I always keep a web browser. 2, I always keep my I'm SSH into a VPS running tmux with IRC, so IRC. 5 is always Thunderbird and that sort of thing, and 6 is like messaging, so like Thunderbird. Like I have this workflow ingrained in my head where this type thing goes in this thing, this application goes in this in this virtual desktop, and then I keep another monitor on top right over here that has. Usually I have music, or if my system, if I'm running a resource intensive process, I'll have HTOP on there because HTOP is the superior top. I don't care what you say. HTOP is the superior top.
Yeah. Whatever you
As
say,
in
dude.
accuracy, you're talking about? You're talking about accuracy?
HTOP. HTOP.
So, Dolphin, what are you working on, man?
You know what I'm working on? I'm sorry Ryan's not here because he's been complaining about 32-bit. Oh, there's Ryan.
Ooh, look, you say his name.
It's
and
almost like he
appears.
heard me.
I know.
So Ryan, a couple of Destination Linuxes ago, mentioned 32-bit installs on UEFI installs on 32-bit UEFI machines. So we procured this piece of junk. These are the worst computers. And seriously, for what you spend on this computer, you could go buy you a rebuilt Lenovo that's got 6 times the power. This makes me so mad. This takes like a half an hour to install MX on this thing. But guess what it does? It does boot on 32-bit now. And as soon as we finalize the installer, we'll update that, and Bob's your uncle.
Man, that is awesome. Well, Dolphin, I have one more complaint because I want to keep you busy.
Oh, God. All right.
I love MX.
This took like 3 weeks to fix.
By the way,
He always comes up with the hard problems, Dolphin. It's never easy.
I need you to fix Pulse Audio. No, here's the thing. So MX.
Well, if you draw it back to 10, that's on MX. You shouldn't have too much.
MX is without a doubt, and everyone, Rocco and I, all of us talk about it, is one of my top 5 favorite distros ever, period. It is amazing. I cannot install it on the Beast where it belongs, my most powerful machine nicknamed the Beast, because it gives me an error on the NVMe drive, but everybody's telling it's just me. So here's my question. How do I give you the specifics you would need to be able to debug that? Because it basically will not, even if I go and manually create partitions or anything, it just gets to the part where it's, after you select to install it on the entire disk, it gives me a failure, and I don't remember what exactly it is, but it gives me a failure. I'll go create manual partitions. It gives me a failure. It sees the NVMe. It just will not move forward on it.
Send them the machine.
I bet he's like that.
He's not going to argue that point.
It'd be much better than that laptop. But I don't know how to debug it enough. Like if I sent you a screenshot, you would just see the error. Like it.
Let me ask you if you're on the screen with where you pick the partitions you want to use, like you do a custom install. We call it custom install. I think it's the option, not the auto install. And it gives you the option for a root window, and it gives you root partition. It gives you an option for home partition. It gives you an option for swap partition. Do the drives even show up there?
Yep, it shows up there.
They show up.
I can create the partitions, and then when I go back to apply it and get to the next screen, that's where it pops up with the error.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
And yet it works on my NVMe drive.
And it works on Zeb's NVMe, and I can install anything. I've had you know how much I distro hop, everything else on it, and it didn't happen in the past. This is something with the latest version of NMX installer, because before you came on one of our episodes, I had it on the Beast. So, it's
Are you
not
formatting it?
I have tried formatting it completely outside of MX and then going back to run MX to install it. It still ran into the same issue.
Bogus.
It's something with this NVMe drive and MX that don't get along. I mean,
we have run into, I don't know if it's related to what you're running into, but we have run into, there is a particular Dell laptop, and I forget the model off the top of my head, but there's a matching like kit motherboard that you can get that's very similar. It has the same whatever firmware on it, and for whatever reason, the 4.15 kernel that we have on the MX 17.1 ISO, it can't access the drive inside the C root when we do the install, and we don't know why. And it's so far, maybe yours is related, but so far that's only, I've got like 3 bug reports on this, and they're all either Dell laptops or the same model Dell laptop, or this one kit motherboard. I don't know. It's maybe this big. It's one of these little motherboards.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work there either. And the errors are weird. Like they're not the same error every time. Like one guy, the installer would start, but it couldn't run anything. We thought couldn't run anything that was in /sbin, and it turned out to be false. It turned out to be anything we were trying to run inside the CH root environment. That was what was failing, and I think that's carrying through. I went so far with a one debug. I think there's one thread in our forums that's like 17 pages long, where we actually disabled services in the installer to try to figure it out. And it's down to that motherboard. Maybe it's something related on yours. I don't know. But what we found that's easier to do is just to use the live USB kernel updater, drop back to one of the earlier kernels, and then do the install and then put it back.
Interesting. Is there a point where you
I don't know if that's your problem.
Later kernel?
What's that?
Are you guys moving to a later kernel at any point soon?
Well, we're always updating them. In our test repo, I know we've got one more later Debian kernel, and I think we've got several later Liquorix kernels.
Okay.
Because we backport those because Liquorix is on testing or whatever, Buster, and we backport those into Stretch for us, and actually for a few other people too. But so maybe that's related. I don't know, but it's only it didn't get through any of our testing we did for the ISO release. It's completely bonkers, and I found like one bug report in the Debian bug system on it. So I think it's related. I don't know if it's your problem, but I mean we've got NVMe drives that it's installing on. So it's some sort of strange hardware combination.
I just cry every time because I'm like,
well,
I get frustrated
I weep for
with
you.
the distro, and I'm like, I see MX there. I should choose him. It won't. Oh my!
But
I don't know how much more you want because
we have the Annex live system. If you got your stick, you can boot this. You can boot the stick, fine, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's the same as in the other bug reports. The live USB was fine, and the accessing the drive, the C root in the environment, anything we were doing through the C root onto the partition failed. So you can change the kernel on the drive while you're running live.
Okay. Nice.
And I've got a video on that on my channel, Run with the Dolphin.
I think he said RTFM.
Well, it's not quite read the manual.
We have a manual. Distro makers always tell me RTFM at some point in our.
I got a video on it, dude. I mean,
I want to show you a video on it. So, at any rate, so it's a trick of the Annex system that we adopted that MX runs on. So it's a pretty good trick, and it solves a lot of problems where you can just swap the kernel out before you ever install. So,
love it. That's awesome. I'll definitely try.
It's
that.
not too tough to do. So
how new do you want the kernel? Because when I installed MX, it's giving me 415.
Well,
415.01.
Yeah, 01. I think is the one on the 17.1 ISO. It's 4.13 on the 17 ISO, but that kernel we had trouble patching it for meltdown inspectors. That's what took so long to get the 17.1 ISO out. So that's the other thing. You could install the 17 ISO and just update.
Nice.
Just to totally
because
change
everybody gets it. Everybody gets 17.1 that installed 17. You just do the regular update. Bam, you're done.
Okay. Perfect.
And the only difference is we don't change a date, so we know which ISO you started with.
Okay.
It's a secret date that we broadcast to the world.
Right.
So
Rocco, I was going to say there's one inherent danger even in joke around RTFM. We ever have anybody that's new in here that has no clue about Linux? They're just starting out and they go, "Oh, I'll try that," and then next thing you know, they're going, "Oh, this is terrible," and then they lose everything, right?
So,
Hey,
Zed,
but it
Zed,
comes with.
I just wanted to ask Zed, what are you booting with a boot partition FAT32 on your NVMe with MX? Because that's how I install on mine. Or doesn't it allow you to do that?
Pass, no idea. All my stuff's GPT partitions. Yes, it'll have a FAT32 UEFI bit, like 512 meg, and then there's just a 100 gigabyte associated to MX.
So is that how Ryan was installing the same way with the boot partition at UEFI?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you still have that error for doing that way as well. Okay.
And and the theory is you really aren't supposed to have in theory a boot partition if you run an SSD, which I believe you are, right, Ryan? And yet I don't know why they say that.
Like an SSD, I guess, but it's M2.
Well, right. I mean, it's still the same thing. It's a solid state board.
It's not specific to.
But me personally, I don't get the correlation between whether it's a mechanical spinning drive or not. If
there is none.
Is going to make a difference.
Well, the motherboards have acted kind of. There's been I know that a lot of distros had an issue for a while running NVMEs because there's a different way the motherboard accesses the NVMEs, and probably somebody smarter like Dolphin could fill in this, but there's a different way the motherboard accesses it than you would your standard SSD drive. And because of that, a lot of Linux had a big problem with NVMEs for a while where you barely could get anything to install Linux related on them. Obviously, that's an issue of the past, but my particular NVMe is an older one, and therefore it could just be having some different abilities. But it worked fine in MX16.
Yeah. And that's very true, though, what you're saying, because now that I think about it, I mean, if they're basically loaded into a port on the board versus a SATA port, which is running through a data cable, and so
I believe you need
a trick you can try if you really want to use it. Yeah, if you just set yourself up 100 gigabyte partition on that NVMe, install to a standard SSD or even a hard disk, and then use known disks to copy the image back. And then boot off the NVMe drive.
Yeah.
And if you're going to create a
but that doesn't give Dolphin 3 weeks of work.
I really need your computer.
I'm going to need your computer.
Go on, Alan. You were going to say?
If you're gonna make a separate /boot, you might as well go ext4. That's fully supported instead of FAT32, because then you risk extra data corruption because FAT32's garbage.
But doesn't the boot UEFI partition have to be FAT32?
No, /boot doesn't. /boot/EFI does.
So that's what he's talking about. The ESP partition.
Yeah, we're talking about the ESP partition. Yeah,
the ESP partition's got to be fat.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. And I believe that you have to have that when you're under UEFI, isn't it? That boot partition is only when you're under UEFI, right?
Yes. If you're on a legacy BIOS boot, you end up installing Grub or whatever you're using to the MBR on the disk.
That's correct.
Now, some distro, some machines, you can have a GPT partition disk and boot legacy, no problem. Some you can't, and it depends on the BIOS of the particular computer.
Right.
We got a guy in Australia, well, somewhere down there, New Zealand, Australia, I don't know, but he's got a whole slew of these Dell laptops in his office, and they all have to have a boot flag set when he boots legacy on the drive. Nobody else needed a boot flag set, but all these particular machines needed a boot flag on the partition you wanted to boot. Not an ESP partition. Like okay, you install Grub to EMBAR and it's a legacy BIOS boot, and then it takes off, and then it says, "Oh, can't find the disk." Well, because we got to set a boot flag on the partition. So it's people that were partitioning manually were missing having to put the flag on. So we kind of sort of built that into the installer this time. But
just as a quick aside, Alan, I'm loving the little photo booth you got going there.
Oh, thanks.
We did it on curtains. That's fantastic.
I was going to ask him what wedding he snatched that from.
It doesn't help with the sound, though. The sound's still bombarding through, so I don't know if they're building behind you.
Is there still sound coming through?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just
You
turned
can
on
hear
the top.
donks and knocks and.
Hey, Carmine.
What's up?
Welcome.
Hey, Tuss, how you going?
Muchachos, ¿qué pasa, man?
Yo, what's happening?
Guess what I did last night? As you know, I sent you a message.
You ate a bunch of tacos, I know, yeah.
Yeah. You see this? You see this?
Bad drive destroyed.
My childhood friend who came up. I've known this guy since I was 3 years old. If you believe that, he came up to visit. We've been trying to get together for months, and he brings this Asus netbook that he had here a few years ago. That I showed him how to use Ubuntu on it through a flash drive, and I had fixed his other computer, which was a Windows computer, and he didn't want to take it off there at the time. So he goes, "Oh, you could just take it. It's a pile of junk." I said, "The drive's bad." So I had a drive sitting here, so I put a drive on it, and he went home with Peppermint on it. And he messaged me today. Oh, this is working with ease. I'm loving it. I put it had 1 gig. I put a 2 gig stick in there for him for RAM, and it's a 2011. And after I cleaned the sand out of it too, because apparently he said his daughter dumped some kind of a display thing over with sand on it, and it got all inside the whole computer. I don't know how it got in there. And so we had a really nice visit. I mean, we went to dinner and that kind of stuff. But that's what I did last night. I was still being the tech boy no matter what, and I converted him to Linux. So at least that's one more in the kitty of the community here. So.
Nice.
Cool.
Welcome, Derek.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Derek.
You didn't distro hop right before the stream again, did you?
You know what? I stayed on Lubuntu for the entire week.
Did you?
Yeah. So,
And what's your thoughts on it?
I really haven't played around with it too much, but it's working. I mean,
awesome.
Yeah.
Or as some of your current video would say, how to not make GNOME suck.
You know, I don't like the GNOME desktop environment, but that's why I went with LXDE this time. So
yeah.
You know, I gave GNOME a shot. I've given KDE a shot.
Did you really give it a shot? I mean, did you really?
You know, people tell me that I'm a hater, like I'm a GNOME hater, and you know, I'm not a hater. You know, it's just that workflow's not for me. Yeah.
But you just said you had Ubuntu on a machine for a week and you haven't really played with it much. So is that truly a fair test?
Yeah, that's yeah. I really haven't done much with it. I mean, I installed OpenBox on it, and I mean, I pulled down all my old configs, but I really haven't done
No, but
much
every time
tinkering
you've
with
gone to it, you haven't had an issue. You haven't gone to say, "Blimey, this doesn't work. That doesn't work. I can't do this. I can't do that." So surely that's a fair test.
Right.
All right. The real question is does Pulse Audio work?
Yeah. In Lubuntu, Pulse Audio works. In Manjaro,
that's lies.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Lies.
Yeah.
And you know what? I really liked living in
Pulse
Manjaro.
Audio works.
Yeah.
Hey, somebody in chat wants to know if LXQT is stable.
It
Like
is.
right
It
now,
is.
stable.
Okay.
Like
So let me go into a little rant about the LXQT versioning scheme.
wow.
Because the LXQT versioning scheme 1.0 LXQT is Wayland stable. 1.0 is not a signifier of we're stable now. So I mean it's a little bit messed up if you want to call it that. But LXQT we're at 0.12 right now, and I consider that extremely stable for what I use it for. And you know, I go through and customize a lot of different things, and I've used it on all my production machines for the past year straight, and I have had zero problems.
Zero problems for you that you couldn't fix, or zero problems?
Zero problems.
I don't believe that.
Really?
There wasn't a pixel law. There wasn't a pixel law.
I could have found a pixel.
We're talking Chicken here. Chicken he'll go up to the screen, he'll put his eyes like right there, and he'll be like, the pixel's off.
I literally only use Chrome over Chromium because I like the icon better.
Yeah.
Chicken, that is the only reason you use Elementary too.
No, buddy.
No, 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 no,
The
no.
elementary icons.
Well, let me ask Simon a question because he's partly the reason I went with Lubuntu, because a couple of weeks ago he told me if I was going to do one of the 1804 releases, I should do Lubuntu. And I'm glad I chose that release. But he's talking about LXQT. Why would I go with something like LXQT versus LXD, which is rock solid, stable, doesn't change?
And dead.
Yeah,
That's
but-
that's basically what it is.
But that's why it's stable.
It's
so,
just true.
LXD does not have a GTK3 port, and well, as far as we know, it never will. So
yeah.
sure, it's reliable, but we're getting to the point where it's GTK2 software that as GTK2 becomes unmaintained, well, then you're going to start seeing problems there as software evolves. So it's rock solid now, but moving forward, Qt is also a little bit more maintainable. You don't have to, you don't have to go with GTK. I've heard from XFC and Monte developers, like they have to sort of adjust and go around what the GTK framework does because GNOME they break things sometimes, and with the Qt framework, you don't necessarily have that. There's a lot of different things where I'm really compelled to say Qt is the way to go, and I'm willing to make that jump because there's LXQT, which is rock solid and reliable for what in my personal testing, and from what I've heard in people who've gotten default settings to work, they find it completely working rock solid as well. So if there's that solution there, which also provides, it's based on a framework that also works well, and it also it's going to be better maintained going forward. I'm personally more inclined to go with that, even if it means shipping Ubuntu with with LXDE for an LTS, and then switching something like that.
So when is the switch planned? Is there a timeline for that yet?
I have a timeline in my head that I'm not necessarily ready to make public yet. I'll say that. That's what I'm going with.
All right.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay.
He's not committing to anything.
Well, Mike brought up
I'm not committing to anything. I'm saying that I'm not revealing my plans that come along with that announcement.
Okay.
Mike brought up a point about GNOME, that if you have to install GNOME tweak tools, then it's already failed the user. So my question is, let's discuss that. Why is that you would fail the user if you have to install a tweak tool?
Because if the tool's not built in,
you can't change the theme. You can't change the icon set. You can't change anything without that tool. Yeah.
Right. Like you can change. Yeah. With GNOME
It's
tweak
like
tool,
a locked system almost.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's locked down. It's like Mac OS. I mean, you can't change anything.
Not user friendly. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And if you think about it, things that are based off of GTK, they have to sort of bend to that upstream too. Like they have to sort of, if GNOME decides to make, like for example, if you have a distribution that, that is based off of, or if you have a thing that is based off of GNOME, or something that, a distribution that ships GNOME, they have to sort of figure out how to go around things when GNOME removes them. For example, when GNOME removed desktop icons. So, like I said, with Qt, you don't have that. With Qt, you have a rock solid stable platform that gets released, and they don't remove features like the desktop icons on your system. They don't break the theming every other update. They make things maintainable going forward, and they make things backwards compatible. And when things aren't backwards compatible,
when they went. Let's see. I guess not really strictly speaking Qt, I guess, but when they went, was it KD3 to KD4? They actually did that. They got rid of the desktop and made it the folder view. But when the KDA4 first shipped, there was no folder view.
Yeah.
So they don't do it now because they already did it.
Right. In my personal view, they've gotten past that. They have gone past that stage where they're just going to break things. I will admit the KDE3 to KDE4 transition, and maybe even early stages Plasma, although less so, things were a little bit unstable. But that's because you're transferring major versions of the toolkit.
I think just looking at that from another point of view, I think their target audience mainly is people coming from like a Mac or a Windows where they're not actually used to changing themes, icons, or anything. And I tend to think this is becoming part of the norm for some distros where they're just actually making it so people don't change those things because it's something that they don't normally do. It is part of the roots of Linux, really.
Yeah. I feel like that's why the locked down sort of term is a bit wrong, because it's not locked. You just haven't opened the door. It's still open. You can still do that. It's just the door is closed. Just open it.
Well, that's where I'm.
Many steps.
I feel like it's not as bad of a problem if the default fallback icons or theme weren't so garbage. So when you have a default icon set that comes with some, sure, that's fine if it covered everything. Or even if it didn't, if the fallback wasn't like GNOME or Adwaita themes that were pure trash and looked like they were drawn by a kindergartner.
I've complained about that GNOME icon set for years.
Like, if that wasn't the fallback, it wouldn't be such an issue.
And the Plasma guys get it. That Breeze icon set, that thing is gorgeous.
Oh, it's a beautiful icon set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but going back to Alan, you had a point, chicken.
I'm beautiful.
Okay, you had a point though. It's not locked. It's just the door's not open. I'm just happy to have GNOME Tweak tools to be able to install and use it. So, you can look at it like, well, if I have to install GNOME Tweak, it's failed. But I'm just happy to be able to do that. Whether or not you have to, or some people won't even install it and won't change anything.
Yeah, I agree. It would fail if GNOME Tweaks wasn't allowed to be installed.
Right.
These are the guys developing the desktop. These are the guys who have chosen it the way it's going to be. And going back to elementary, if you can just forget all of your Linux tweaks that you've always done and have somebody come from Windows onto elementary, it works and it looks really pretty.
Not to mention, I can show everyone how to tweak it. So,
how civil would we be if Windows 11 required their version of a Windows GNOME Tweak tool?
They do. They do require everything to be able to tweak it.
I was gonna say, what was that tool that Stardock for a long time made so you could tweak Windows?
Oh yeah, I had that.
Yeah.
That was all right.
They did add more customization options recently. Like, there's a lot more than there were when Windows 10 first launched, but it's still not quite to the level that we're used to with a lot of Linux.
Okay, so that's an interesting thought right there. So how many of you guys really switched to Linux because you couldn't change Windows enough?
That's not why I switched.
Yes. Well, also because it broke my install.
Yeah, all right, Matt's over there. Okay, a couple other guys. Yeah, Rocco. All right, so a lot of us did. So back in Windows 3.1, for those of you who weren't alive back then, that was what came before Windows 95.
Oh, that Mac OS.
I was alive then.
So, yeah, Rocco, Zeb, me. I don't know. Some of you go, Joe. Yeah. So there wasn't... Windows 3.1 actually didn't have a desktop, right? So it had like the program manager, and that's where all your programs were, and it had the file manager, and that's where your files were. And the file manager was actually pretty good, or at least nostalgically, it was pretty good. So you could change that. People sold shells for those things. I mean, shareware, for crying out loud. I mean, I had my Windows 3.1 desktop so different from everybody else's. You couldn't tell it was Windows, right? It just had like two toolbars on it and a right click. It was really awesome to change that. You could change Windows shell to be Microsoft Word.
To be fair,
really wanted to. So when it booted up Windows, it started Word. It was. I only really thought about that one time.
Right? Yeah, but to be fair, the Windows 3.11, the Windows for Work Groups, that was the best version of Windows. Everything after that, I mean, it started downhill. 95, 98, they became progressively worse.
Well, I mean, there's some argument for that. At least 95 still had DOS underneath it. It was just hard to get to.
I mean, Windows 3.1 was really when Windows blew up. It was because it was such an awesome operating system. And then It was just
that's where
downhill
XP
from.
came in, 'cause
You could change all those desktops. In 95, you can't change the desktop anymore besides some of that theming stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
they sold that
95, they
weird
basically
thing.
tried to clone Mac almost. With Windows
Yeah, and then
95.
98 was a better 95, really. It was
98 was pretty good, I thought.
At least USBs worked with 95 with 98.
Yeah.
Did someone say new technology, Colonel?
But XP, when
New
XP
technology kernel. I can say it.
Do you remember that XP's big thing? Because I went to a big exposition that Microsoft put on in downtown Chicago, and that was the big dance they had with security, and also the workflow was supposed to be better in the sense of installing programs and all that stuff.
Security was horrible in XP.
Right.
That's why I changed. He asked, why did people change? Because of my computer being taken over with ransomware, basically.
Well, Windows XP, right? Windows XP was still built when Microsoft was Bill Gates was still hooked on CD-ROMs for everything, right? Remember the bucket load of CD-ROMs you'd get with a Packard Bell computer, right? I mean, seriously, guys, it was like a 5-gallon bucket from Lowe's full of discs. and that was the solution. So security was completely, internet security wasn't even in the realm. I swear they lashed that thing on XP.
It got better with Windows 7, I think, in terms of security and stability. Maybe it started with Vista, but I think Windows 7 to me was the last really good, non-controversial Windows.
Sorry about
7's good.
Yeah, 7.
I like 7.
7 is still good.
We're still using 7 Professional at my office. So
I liked 7, but you're going back to why we use Linux. I customize to a point. So that's my number one reason for Linux is speed. Just speed. I mean, especially like update process. I know when there are updates, I'm like, okay, well that shouldn't take long. In Windows, it's like, oh god, 6 megabytes of updates. How long, Windows? Okay, but
half an hour later.
You don't think they'd be able to do a wrap-up update?
Windows 7 was a cleaned up Vista. That's what that was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they did a very good job with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the thing is, for me, it wasn't the customizability. I didn't really care. I mean, you could tweak it enough to do what I wanted to do with it, and it would be frustrating. And sometimes you got to do some settings on one computer, and you'd have, what I like to do is take down from a performance level. I like to take down all the fluff out of there and still have it kind of look the same or whatever. And that was enough for me, but it was still consistent on machine to machine, which is not much different than Linux that way. But what set me over the edge was when Windows 10 rolled out with telemetry for the privacy stuff and all that, and then backporting it to 8 and 7. That was what set me over the edge. I didn't like their business model. I didn't like how they did it and all that. And I always liked Linux. Don't get me wrong. I was always dabbling in it. I always had it on some machine somewhere since
that was disappointing.
60,
and the forced upgrades, God, jeez.
Yeah. So I am. And the ease of installing, in the early days, let's face it, Linux was a nightmare to turn around and try to load on a system because drivers were an issue. Nowadays, I actually think, and I'll make the argument, I think Linux does a better job of plug and play and go in and boom and fire up. Drivers are less of an issue than even Windows is right now, because the first thing you do is you fire up Windows. You're still sitting there for 3 hours waiting for updates. Even in Windows 10, depending on if you don't get the 1709 update, which now that's already been out a little bit, you're still going to sit there with an hour of updates.
Yeah, that's what I don't like.
Go ahead and say I've never had this problem with Windows. Like, I've always gotten my updates really fast and never had them break anything. So I'm always confused when I hear this 3 hour.
Well, that's like flipping a coin, though, Alan, because the reality of it is depending on, it still comes back to the machine. And then the other thing too is you may not have problems today, but I guarantee you, of course they're getting better. I shouldn't say that, but there's still cases where they bring out an update that breaks something. But then again, so does Linux. I mean, it's the world, nature of the beast. I don't think that's
True confessions, like a month ago or so, it was actually right after Meltdown Spectre was patched by Microsoft. My AMD machine back here in the TV room, which true confession runs Windows, it bricked. That was it. It didn't break. I fixed it, but the update started. 8 hours later, it wasn't finished.
Mm-hmm.
and
Wow. See, I've never-
my wife said she'd had enough of it. She just killed it, and that was probably bad because that's what took so long to fix. So, but we ended up booting from the recovery partition and doing a system restore. And do I know what it did? No, because there's no
There was a
nice
similar
handy
problem.
console, anything telling me what's going on. So I don't
When
know.
Windows 10 first launched,
But it runs
that was
iTunes, so it's on the family computer.
Well, and that's the thing too, is there were you talk about brick and stuff. When Windows first came out, or Windows 10, excuse me, when it first came out too, it literally was physically, I don't know how, but it was physically breaking hardware. There were people complaining about breaking sound systems, that they couldn't get them to work ever again, and even hard drives, which I have no clue how you physically break a hard drive with software.
Scan
So
disk
you guys
muck.
What's that?
When I look at
I'm chicken on this one. I've never had a problem with Windows. It just works. Yeah, the upgrades are a pain in the neck, and the worst one is you do the upgrade whilst you're using the machine, and you might be on there for 2 hours and everything's fine. You go to boot back into Linux, and then you've got this 40-minute wait while it does the updates while you shut down, and then the next time you boot back into Windows, you've got another 30 minutes waiting for it to come up.
Absolutely.
You've just got to finish the updates.
But the worst is
something from
when
Linux.
you do that, Zeb, and then it wants to check your drive and you don't catch it in time.
Yeah, that hurts, especially when I've got 8 USBs attached. That just takes forever.
I think XP is the one that drove me to Linux. The startup was slow, and then every time you looked at someone else's XP or tried to fix it, that was always like, it takes it 10 minutes to start. XP always, it was great when it was first installed, but give it like a month or two.
Yeah.
Once those updates started flowing through, that was it. That was what drove me.
Not to mention the complete mess that was Internet Explorer 8 and the toolbars from Yahoo and shopping channels and Ask Jeeves, and I don't know how that got there. I didn't click on anything.
I don't see the web page. I only see the toolbars covering the web.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
You end up with 28 pages of toolbars and half an inch for the actual screen.
And they get put there by installing stuff with a .exe, and then quite often you miss that little checkbox, and that installs the toolbars on your browser, and that's how that always happens. And a lot of people just go do the defaults and installs, and then most things, because they were free, that's why they were free. They were putting stuff on your browsers.
It's bundleware.
But they have cured the startup problem now, because I've got a new Windows laptop here and it starts up in under 10 seconds. And that's from a cold boot. That's not from, and if I open it up from after having just shut the lid, it starts up in about 4 seconds. It's ridiculously quick.
Yeah, that's because
I just can't install Linux on it.
Why?
Because it's got some weird, dodgy Intel drive thing crap. I don't know. No one's worked out how to do it yet. I'm not going to trash a brand new computer. I might do it in about a year's time, but it's got some weird thing that Linux just doesn't know what it's doing.
Well, there are some great things about Windows. Like Windows Hello is something that Linux just isn't on that level. Being able to log into your computer just by opening it up and it seeing your face. Like I've got IR cameras and sensors on my computer that I can't use because Linux is just like, who cares? And the Microsoft Surface, like the Studio, beautiful machine, wonderful hardware.
What about Cortana? We don't have Cortana,
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, the closest thing we have to a voice assistant is some stupid machine that doesn't know what beans are.
But see, that's all part of the privacy complaint, though.
Talking about Cortana, just when you get a moment, go and have a look at Ghosty1670. His latest video that he did he bought a really tiny Zoo Storm and it had Windows 10 on it. And he asks Cortana just one question. I'm not going to repeat it because we're family friendly. But the reply from Cortana was, well, that's not very friendly. We're not going to get on, are we? And he's now running Rosa 10 LXQT. But it's quite a funny bit of the video.
I've seen a Quids Up video. I think they have a virtual assistant for Linux now. Still in beta or something like that.
Yeah. The thing about Linux things is every time we get something, it's always that weird off-brand thing that kind of works, but kind of doesn't. And it takes us a long while to get on the train with weird things like that, because typically they all rely on stuff that Linux people hate, like data collection or being smart about using locational services so it doesn't speak to you in French because you speak English. But wait, we can't collect that data. So we don't know.
There's a reason why the Google Assistant works so well.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because they got one heck of a supercomputer over there at Google.
That's one thing that upsets me about it is because like I feel like they do things with Linux that we're either afraid to do because of the outlash or the backlash, or we just don't do because we don't think it's beneficial. And like with Android, they took Linux and they did something with it and people used it. They took Gen 2 Linux and built Chrome OS, which is now in use everywhere, because they weren't afraid to say, hey, so what if it's Linux? We're not bound by your principles. This is about the technology. And I feel like that holds back at the same time it helps us.
This isn't a corporation where one man calls the shots. It's a community. No, you can't get everybody to agree on anything.
Except it's somewhat a community. Like the technology itself is not a community. It's
like System D. You can't get people to agree on that. To some people, it's like the worst evil thing that's ever been created, and other people love it.
But that's just what I think is kind of interesting, is that like creators or developers shouldn't have to be smacked down and beat down because something they do doesn't line up with everyone else's ideals. In the same way, the data collection thing from Ubuntu, people were raging about that when it's small amounts of data that are insignificant, especially in the way that they're secured. Like, we're not allowed to do anything because people will be furious.
Well, it's fairness, Alan. That's coming off of, again, the Windows thing, because people came over to Linux because of the privacy thing, and then here you are, a year and a half or 2 years later, all of a sudden Ubuntu's rolling it back in there again. Even if it is small, all they see is data collection. Doesn't matter what level it is, and then that part I think will calm down. And even some of the other things you're talking about. I still sound like a broken record, but you look at where Linux was 10 years ago on the desktop to where it is now, and especially the last 3 years. And that all stemmed from when XP went away. Everybody was paranoid. They didn't want to be upgrading because there was already rumors about Windows 10 being a privacy, data stealing, whatever it was. So then people were just rolling over to Linux for a while there. So, I think in fairness, I don't think it's going to hopefully take another 10 years, but I do think that, in the not so distant future, you're going to see some of these other things probably being added, because just look at even in the last year, the strides that it's made in some of the, the developments of what's going into some of these distros. So I think it's kind of like, maybe give it another couple of years, see where it's at. And if 2 years down the road, we're still in the same boat, then I'd say, now you got a fairly valid argument. But, I still attribute, like, looking at Windows 10 as they've wrapped their arms around whatever they want to do. I never trust what they do because they like to copyright everything, but they're kind of embracing Ubuntu now. Who knows what the real reason is.
But do you believe that it's the responsibility of Linux developers to pay for the mistakes of Windows and that user base being
no, and that's not what I'm saying. I don't think that's the case. I know what you're trying to say. If anything, I think what it is there's probably a higher expectation of Linux developers because people coming over and they hear all these, we're always talking about the negative, but the good things, and there's a lot of good about it,
Yeah, but
it's still lagging behind with some of these things, and that's the problem. But I still say Windows 10 looks a lot like Ubuntu, and so it does. We look at the tiling and everything. So and that's been said ever since. So what do they say about copying? It's the best form of flattery. So
or did Kubuntu take Windows 8.1 and have a look at it? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did Kubuntu look at Windows 8.1 with the tiling and go, that looks nice, we'll have some of that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about this Windows 8 thing, but I can answer the chicken question.
It's right in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
but
like,
the idea of the whole privacy thing should always come down to it being the user choice
Yeah.
rather than make an
Right.
argument of, well, we need this data for some reason. Because there's always going to be a reason that you can come up with for getting data.
Yeah.
But it should always come down to having it to be the user choice.
I agree.
Well, the nicest thing about Ubuntu is when I believe when you click to shut that off, it shuts off. In Windows, it doesn't.
Well,
No.
it's all
It
open
shuts
source
off the top
code.
layer.
It's all open source code. I mean, if there was something scandalous in it, somebody would find it. It's completely
Right.
different with Windows. We have no idea what's in the Windows code.
Yeah, that's interesting, Joe. One of what you just said, Windows actually does when it updates, it will change settings that you have on your computer back to new defaults.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times I've changed the folder share settings on this machine back here behind me, because every month or so it resets all the folder permissions from something other than what I had it back to whatever system
Cat
default
and
is.
mouse.
Yeah. And I've said that before, Dolphin, too, because what it does, there is actually a way to go into the registry in Windows 10 and pull the telemetry files out to where
Yeah.
it won't collect anything. But the very next day that it does its usual update, guess what? They're all going right back in there again.
At least with Linux, and where the bulk of your changes are in your home folder for your apps anyway, that home folder is pretty sacrosanct. I haven't seen too many things try to update stuff inside your home folder.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know every now and
It
then
happens.
every
it
now and then
happens.
we want to, right? I don't know if us distro developers were like, oh, we could just change that in the home folder. No, we're not touching anything in the home folder.
But I have updated programs before, and they mess up the config file. You know, they rewrite the config that you had for a program, and it does happen. It's not common, but I've had it happen.
I feel like
Well, and that, to
sometimes
me,
it-
that's not, sometimes if you get a major update, like I haven't done too many rolling distributions, so I don't know,
Yeah.
I guess.
It
But
tends to happen
sometimes
on
data
Arch for
file
me.
configurations change. And
Yeah.
I guess then it has to change.
Yeah.
I will say, we were talking about Windows XP a second ago. Windows XP is proof positive that somebody will run an operating system for 12 years.
Oh yeah, and that was part of the problem with XP. Is when XP came out, man, most computers still had like 256 megs of RAM.
Yeah, I mean, we
and
talked about Debian stable.
By the time end of life came, most machines are already 4 gigs, 8 gigs. I mean, think about how computing changed during the lifespan of Windows XP.
But think about your average stable Linux distribution. We still expect all the apps to be updated.
Yeah.
As we go. Now, we might not change the base system. It might still remain XFCE. Well, XFE is a bad example. It might be GNOME.
Hey.
I'm just saying. We put 4.12 on MX14. Point something. I don't know. It was in 2015. We've been running that version forever. So people talk about Debian stable. Oh, it's old software. That's nothing. People ran Microsoft Word 6 for 20 years.
Yeah. I get people when I mention that I like Debian stable, they tell me it's Debian still. I was like, but still is good, Still doesn't break.
I still have friends running Word 2003, like still running, still doing exactly what they do on Word 2003.
I was gonna say, look at what George R.R. Martin uses to actually write the Game of Thrones books.
Yes,
There's 2010 right there.
There you go. That was
Bring
a really
on the ribbon.
It's actually not installed because it comes. Yeah, you know why? Because in 2010, computers still had CDs drives.
Oh, cool.
Nowadays,
And nowadays, you can't do that. Went to throw it on my wife's Lenovo Yoga. They were like, "Oh, here's the disk for it." She says,
What disk?
yeah, there's no disk drive. Sorry."
what's a disc?
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed quite a bit. But see, even Windows 7 is been. It was like XP. I mean, that's been around the second longest, and people would love it. I mean, it's just I do. I like it. I mean, overall, let's give Windows credit for what it is. The OS itself is not bad.
It's pretty good.
But it's all the basis of what it does. That's the issue. And that's the corporation. That's not necessarily the product itself.
Yeah, seriously. One thing, and I found that people, when they actually do make a switch, a lot of times they switch because all the apps that they were using were already open source apps. You can get LibreOffice. You can get, of course, all the file browsers that you want.
Yeah, VLC, all of
VLC.
that.
You can run Kden Live on Windows if you want to, although that is never an example. All that stuff's on multiple platforms now.
Yeah.
So it is actually less of a hop for people who are using those apps to just go, oh, look, it's on here already. Okay, Netflix works. I'm happy. Netflix not working.
The biggest thing for a lot of people is if their core apps are the same on one system as the other, the underlying OS is not going to matter. That's why Google goes for that 80% functionality when it comes to like Chromebooks. So they're 80% functional and they're 80%, whatever. That's all they aim for is functionality. That's why Google Docs lacks 20% of the stuff that people would like.
But think about something else too with Windows though. Originally on the onset, they were going to lock all these third parties out, and that's still the goal. Eventually, they're going to start locking the third party software out. Is what my understanding is.
That wasn't exactly what they were going to do. They wanted to make it installable only from an app store.
That's right.
And that's Windows 10s. Windows 10s does that.
Yeah. And the thing is if in fairness, if you look at Mac, see that's the thing. You have Mac software that's not going to run on Windows, and you have Windows software that's not going to run on Mac unless you run it as in a dual boot situation. Yeah. So Linux really, I don't know why Linux still looks like this square wheel. It's getting better, but some people still think they look at because Apple and Mac or Apple and Windows have been around so long. I don't know, but they'll talk about Mac and Windows left and right. But then when you put Linux in the mix, they don't realize it's the same. It's really the same thing. It's got its own environment of stuff that some of it will carry over to Windows, but realistically, how much of it carries over on the Mac?
In terms of UI, though, in Linux, as far as UIs go, when we get something really polished and looking good and looking first class, we kill it. GNOME 3.2, whatever that last that we or 2. The GNOME 2 that was great, and then we killed it. KDE 3.5 was the best KDE ever. Then they killed that. It's like we get to a point where it's just awesome, and then.
But do they KDE 3.5 was not the best KDE ever.
But even
it wasn't any of the 4 series. Definitely wasn't.
It might have been up to that time.
Okay,
but
yeah.
It's not ever.
Well, you're saying Plasma is.
I'm just saying MEPIS. Spiritual successor of or forebear of MX ran KDE 3.5 and it was miserable. So
tell that to the Trinity guys. Huh?
Now, are you talking
the MEPIS guys? The MEPIS community guys are going to throw stuff at me now.
I don't think they kill stuff for the sake of killing it. I think that it's killed because they're hoping to come out with something better, and a lot of times it's not. And
it's never better though.
But they should always wait to kill it until they have something to replace it right then. That's our problem. We jump before we have a ship to jump to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when Plasma first came out, Plasma was woeful, but Kubuntu 18.04 is actually pretty damn good.
It is nice.
I'm having no problem.
I love the new Kubuntu.
But it's taken them 3 years to get there. You're right, Shikin. They should. Okay, we've got this version. It works. Now let's work on this one. 18 months later, here we go, boys. Bring it out.
That's why I like what I.
But then we get accusations that XFCE is stale because that's exactly what they do. They don't swap until it's ready, and we all moan about.
I was going to say we're sitting here. We're XFCE. We're saying
accidentally defended them.
So, Dolphin, when you say that about KDE and the MEPIS community, are you talking from a developer standpoint that it was terrible, or are you talking from a
No, I just tried to use it. I mean, back then I wasn't. I was just trying to find something back then that would work on my old Sony laptop, and if I put Ubuntu on there with GNOME 2, and I fired up AbiWord, I could type faster than AbiWord would show the letters on the screen. That's how lousy this computer was. The I forget which version of MEPIS that was. I think it was actually one of the ones that was based on Ubuntu. that one had the same problem, but mostly I think that might have been the implementation because there was a lot of duplication in the menus. Remember the early menu systems? They put everything to be in the menu like 6 times.
Yep.
That was more where I was going to, but I don't know. I think today's KDE, I think personally is head and shoulders over the even the interface from 3.5. Although 3.5 is fast. You put Trinity on a laptop right now.
Trinity is blazing fast. Yeah.
And it is fast. I mean, the hardware caught up. I think that's probably more of the problem is that the hardware wasn't there.
I think that is part of the problem.
The last time I tried out Trinity, that thing booted up with less than 300 megs. It was crazy.
I tried a version of Trinity not too long ago, and it was fast. Holy cow! I mean, it was pop, 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 pop. It was
for a full desktop environment. You don't see full desktop environments as light as Trinity.
Yeah. It's on Q4 OS, that Trinity, and that does run really fast, and that looks nice these days. The Q4 OS.
I just saw a tweet. I didn't even know Q4 OS existed, but not even joking, about 10 minutes before I joined, I just saw a tweet from I think it was the Linux Foundation on Q4 OS. So
it's a solid distro if you like the Trinity desktop.
They got some really nice. What can you say? Some desktop themes now, which are looking really, really stunning, I must say, in that desktop, because it was looking a little bit Windows 95-ish a little while ago, but now they've really improved it big time. So, but just getting back to the mindset on like what Shiken was saying and Dolphin with the Microsoft 2010 Office and all that. I mean, this is the mindset I think that GNOME and Elementary and all these guys are chasing, is that people don't care about updating. They don't care about changing icons. They don't care about changing the header bars and all that. They just want a system that's fast, reliable, and works. And I think that's maybe their target audience, because that's the way Windows users are. And I think we tend to forget that, because when we get to Linux and realize all these things we can tamper with, I think we get distracted with all these things that we can tamper with and forget about how good Linux can be as a reliable operating system.
Well, that's what I said a long time ago. I said we got to stop complaining about what's wrong with it and talk a little bit more about what's right with it too. And you still need to discuss the issues, because that's how they get corrected. But
absolutely,
that's part of, I think, the perception, where the perception of Linux coming across as being substandard is because there's always discussions about what's lacking.
Windows users want what Linux users want. They just want the damn thing to work, man. I mean, that's just the reality of it. It's the Linux desktop. I've yet to find one. There's a lot of good ones, obviously, but I cannot find one yet that can completely replace my Windows 10. There's always some quirk. It's usually involving multimedia. Like tonight, I did a Life in Linux with Tom from Switch to Linux. So he hosted it. So I recorded the conversation for a podcast using audio recorder app. Simple app. Played it back. It's choppy. Welcome to what the heck, man? It's crisis 2018. It does not work. That app will not work for me. Maybe it works for somebody else, but it's always in multimedia. That's the problem. In Linux, that's why I have Windows 10 as a backup. Now it's gotten better where I'm using over 50% Linux, whether it's Ubuntu Mate, Ubuntu MX17, Peppermint. It's gotten better, but it seems like there's always something in any Linux distro where it's always holding me back. I can't completely give up Windows yet, and it's something with multimedia, and I don't know why.
Did Simon leave, Rocco? Because that sounds like Pulse Audio to me. I want to make sure he's working on
it. It could be.
I think it's Pulse Audio.
No. But Carmine, you love Mate. I love Mate too. But Mate's not perfect. One of the things that drive me nuts the most about it, the little quirk, you go to resize a window. Try to get the mouse down in the corner to grab, to pull it up or resize. At least on my machine, it's quirky. So I got to sit here and screw around with it to just line it up right to grab it half the time.
Really, no. I mean, nothing is perfect. Not even
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Everyone got some little quirk, but it's whether you will.
If I was stuck on an island and somebody says pick Ubuntu Mate or Windows, I got to go with Windows. I'm sorry.
You guys that dual boot, I know.
Wow.
Ooh,
Hey,
are you going to ban him, please?
We're gonna have to change the
wanna know
name
why?
to like
Because
Big Daddy Windows.
I
Live
can't
stream,
believe I showed up
'cause-
on your show yesterday, Toss, and now you're talking like this. I didn't know you were a traitor.
All right. Jeez.
Hey, Toss.
Hey,
Since you dual boot
I got
Windows,
kind of like trunk ready. Just you want to watch it now.
hey, Toss. Let me ask you a question, buddy. Since you do Windows and Linux, when you do streaming on OBS, is OBS more stable in Windows than it is in Linux? Because it crashes in Linux on me all the time. I'm wondering about our multimedia apps as far as stability. Like Caden Live crashes on me sometimes.
I'll be honest. OBS, and I'll do it both.
Yeah.
It does not crash in Windows or in Linux so far. Now, I did notice in the Windows version, there's some extra plugins available. Like
there's some extra options. Yeah.
Again, it's always multimedia again. But in terms of crashing, no. For me, at least, in Linux, it's fine with Ubuntu Mate. Yeah. I haven't tested OBS and Peppermint or MX17 or Ubuntu.
But have you found like the programs that are available in both that some are better in Linux than Windows or vice versa?
OBS is fine. Caden Live and Linux, well, that's still a beta. It's not fair, but
it crashes on me all the time.
It seems okay, but it seems better in Linux. Okay. Other apps like Audacious or whatever is available, that really hasn't been a problem for me. But OBS is pretty solid. I mean, obviously, I can record the audio in OBS. Of course, it records video too and just do the editing later. But in terms of recording just audio, like a Skype conversation or tonight's conversation, in an app for Linux to record the audio, for me, it's always choppy. Always. Maybe it's Pulse Audio or something.
Interesting.
I haven't noticed that in Windows.
Okay. Well, with OBS, I've noticed that it's always worked perfectly for me in Linux, but I've noticed that there are things in the OBS version for Windows that I don't have here on Linux, and some of it is because I've got AMD stuff in my system, but some of them is like GPU accelerated stuff of some kind for AMD that aren't options when I use it in Linux.
So some of that has to do with the way DirectX and OBS plugs into DirectX as opposed to OpenGL.
Well, it worked a lot better. I mean, this works perfectly, but it did work better.
Yeah, I can tell you say that because I actually there was a series I was doing on my channel, and it was comparing a game within Linux and comparing the game in Windows. Mm-hmm. And so now keep in mind, I've only been in Linux for 2 years here, so most of my experience, everything is Windows based. I had my computer completely set up for years Windows with all the technical stuff I was doing, including OBS, live streaming to Twitch, all of that. When I recorded the game in OBS in Windows, the quality was so bad of the recording that I actually couldn't use the footage because it made it look like I was making Windows look purposefully worse than the Linux version of the game.
Sounds like the settings.
Because the quality was so much higher in Linux OBS than it was in Windows version. And I literally had to take the footage and take it out. I re-recorded it 3 times, changing settings. And I have an NVIDIA 1080, so it's not like I'm using an old video card here. It's the latest stuff. And I just couldn't use the footage because I figured everybody would be commenting, you purposely tried to make it look bad. And I was like, so I just didn't show the Windows version when it was playing because it was just that noticeably different.
That is crazy.
I can tell you, my wife uses OBS on both a live MX USB stick because we can't install it on her Lenovo for some strange reason. It locks out, but we run it off the live stick. It doesn't crash. It hasn't crashed. Let me just back up. It hasn't crashed in our use. Her Windows one crashes all the time. So I can't really say, if it's versions or I don't think they're the same version, but I know that hers crashes on the Windows side. It hasn't crashed on the USB yet.
It could be hardware related. It may have nothing to do with,
I'm sure.
Yeah,
it could be because I only ever do live streams and they're only about 40 minutes anyway, and I've noticed no noticeable difference between Windows and Linux. Yeah, Windows has a few more tweaks, but some of those are coming across to the Linux version now. I think you mentioned that Linux browser or the Windows browser. You can get that as a plugin for the Linux. That's what Big Daddy's running now, so that he can see the chat in the window. So they are porting it across, but for the simple stuff that I do, it doesn't crash on either platform.
So Randy mentioned in chat in Windows he ran XSplit. That's what I actually used to use as well, and it's so I really liked XSplit.
XSplit was really nice.
I missed XSplit when I came to Linux for sure.
It's so great that we can record our screens and oh wait, Wayland.
Yeah. The thing that I find funny is that we get to a point in Linux where like things are finally stable-ish for us. You know, Xorg has its issues, of course. Then it's like, oh, let's change the display server.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, it's old and crusty, we get it. But
I don't mind them changing it, but why is Fedora making Wayland default?
I was going to say, can we at least have it ready?
Thank you, Derek. And also, isn't Wayland 8 years old? Isn't it crusty now at this point?
If it worked, I'd be so happy. But I can't even run my monitor at the full at its refresh rate under Wayland because the window managers don't support compositing on over 60.
How old is Zorg? Since like Fred Flintstone days, it's been out or something. But
Wayland's
like a little older.
Wayland seems like that promised land of Linux that usually, you know, Rocco will tell you I'm an excitable person, so I get excited with new things. But Wayland is not exciting to me at all.
Latency
too. Not.
It's so laggy.
I tested in like an Ubuntu and it seemed slower. Some of the apps when I think I downloaded Synaptic, it wouldn't open. All because I logged away. I'm like, well, that's the heck.
And that's before you get to the copy pasting issues. You can't copy paste between a lot of different types of windows because there's an issue clipboarding between X Wayland and Wayland.
Okay, well,
yeah.
So we could tell people convert to Linux, just don't copy and paste.
Just like to say that Debian and Stable will be on Xorg for approximately forever.
Approximately forever.
So come on over. If you want to cut and paste, we're ready for you.
Yeah, it just works. What are they fessing and messing about with it? I've been hearing about this Vulkan and all the rest of it on Wayland for God knows how long.
Yeah. Now Vulkan, I'm excited.
Really,
Vulkan's great.
It's never going to happen.
No. Like Vulkan is a different thing entirely. Like,
yeah, Vulkan's amazing.
That puts the libraries closer to the metal. Is really all that does. Like instead of like the 7 layers that we have currently,
it's like a bean dip.
Exactly.
Vulkan allows more. Vulkan's completely different because Vulkan's more for developers and it allows them to be able to port as well games easier over between platforms. You know, without all of the issues that you would have today. When you play with Vulkan, like if you run Doom in Vulkan or you run on Linux, what's that shooter?
Unreal.
I can't think of its name, but there's a shooter in Linux that runs Vulkan exclusively. It runs fabulous, man. The frame, Ballistic Overkill. The frame rates are just like 300-400 frames per. It's ridiculous when you think about a console. You know, console gamers like, hey, I finally got 60. I'm like, yeah, we're at 400. So I mean, Vulkan is cool, man. I'm excited about Vulkan, but Wayland is not exciting.
Wayland's a sad boy.
Exactly.
Dolphin, you got that question?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, so Scrap's in the house.
Speaking of Pulse audio issues, there's Scrap, man.
Hey, Scrap, guess what you get to help Ryan with again?
There's XNR JOU4TD.
I have no idea what's going on with that name.
Yeah, what's going on with that name? That's why I didn't let you in, dude.
That's why you got booted, mate. Sorry.
His audio works, but his keyboard's broken.
Don't ever update your Arch install right before the stream. That's a bad idea.
No, he borrowed it from Michael.
Man, Scrap, this whole stream here, every single person you're seeing need you right now.
I'm so sorry.
Move us all away from Pulse and get us on Jack.
Y'all need to get jacked.
Get jerked.
Yeah, exactly.
Worth it.
Well, it's too hard to set up. Sorry.
It's worth it if you don't distro hop.
Yeah.
Not if Scrap's there holding your hand, Rocco.
If you got Ubuntu, you can, anything Ubuntu based, you can do it.
Are you doing Ubuntu Studio?
No, it's Neon.
No. Okay.
I've been on Neon for a while.
This man speaks the truth.
Oh, well.
Grab, how up to date are the KX things? I know
You know,
they were working on a bunch of stuff last I knew.
you know what? There was one day about almost a month ago, I updated and I was rehearsing with a group. Why you haven't seen me for a while is I was rehearsing with a group that was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be doing this stuff this summer, but that all fell through. So I'm back. Cool, I'm back. So, but I got back to my computer and I was like, I want to play with my buffer size and my sample rates and all the stuff and latencies and all the fun geeky
That's
audio
exactly
stuff.
what I think when I sit down too.
Well, on one hand,
How big
on
is
one
your buffer size? Sorry. Go ahead, Scrap. Sorry.
There's pills for that, Rocco, but no, go ahead.
This is a G-rated show. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Scrap.
So anyway, lower latency is better because you can use digital sound processing for like reverbs and fun stuff and all kinds of fun stuff. Anyway, I can run latencies that are so stupid small. Latency is like from the time your voice goes through your microphone to the time it comes back through your ears. And if you do hardware monitoring, it's really good. It's like 0, but if you do it through software with effects or whatever, it sometimes can be a pain in the butt because then you get that weird delay and it messes with you. Well, I don't know what they updated, but I can get latencies under a millisecond.
Wow.
It's stupid. Yeah, I can probably take my rig and plug my guitar into it and use Guitar X at a gig at this point. I haven't tried it yet, but it's the performance update has really taken a big step up. And I know Falk XT, who is the guy that maintains Jack and Jack 2 and all of the KX Studio repos, he's been using Neon. So whenever the next Neon comes out with 1804, I think it is, that is going to be the next KX Studio distro, because he doesn't push any kernel stuff or whatever. He just takes a good distribution as it is and then fixes the little tweaks that he thinks it needs to put his repos on top of. But you can always take KX Studio repos and plop them on top of an Ubuntu wherever. So Neon is probably the best one to use right now for it, and it's really good. It's really nice.
That's awesome.
And if you build a script, which maybe I'll get back to that tutorial, maybe.
Please, Scrap.
Maybe. Now that I don't have 2 bands to play in. I do have 2 kids now, though. That happened the last time since you've seen me.
Wow.
I have a newborn that's sleeping upstairs.
Nice.
Actually sleeping. That's cool.
Actually sleeping. So that's the update for me.
Nice.
Hi, guys. Nice to see you again.
So now that Simon, did anybody notice that
Thanks,
Simon
Scrap.
backed out?
Yeah, he's been gone for a little while.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he slipped out the back door because he didn't want to hear any more problems about the audio. Scrap, now it's your fault. You have to fix
problems? There's audio problems? What?
I'm sorry, you can't hear us? I forgot.
Well, it's a pulse audio problem. If he's using jack,
He's
then
gone, look.
Hey, nobody mentioned Carl was in the house either.
What's up, Carl?
Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl.
Hey, somebody changed my name.
I did.
Yeah.
I saw it changed about 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I wasn't looking at this screen. I was just listening to everybody and talking.
You know, I've always wanted to learn how to use things like Jack and Ardour and, you know, all those geeky multimedia, but effort. I can't do it. You know, it's too much effort.
Where's Michael?
I thought I had patience for Blender. I'm like,
Blender.
Oh, no.
That's a nightmare too. Yeah.
I did the same thing, Toss. I opened it up and even actually watched some videos showing you how to like do a tutorial, and I'm like, oh no.
It's amazing.
It would take you months to learn how to just do the most basic stuff. Yeah.
It's like buying a Cadillac loaded.
Yeah.
I used to do everything in Blender.
It's too much. That's why if I got to do something, I'll do with something in GIMP, Kdenlive, something simple.
You know what? Just hire a freelancer.
Be better.
Do like full on.
It's the Cadillac.
Have you got reasonable rates, Scrap?
What? What's that?
Have you got reasonable rates to sort out these guys' pulse audio problems?
Scrap. Oh, pal, old buddy. Why do audio recorders kind of suck in Linux?
Why do they suck in Linux? The recorders?
Seriously, like tonight I did a Life in Linux with Tom from Switch to Linux. He hosted it, so I figured I would record the audio for a podcast edit later.
How are you recording
I'm sorry, the audio was choppy. Welcome to
your sample rates weren't matched up. You have to understand sample rates.
Go ahead. I mean, so
Pulse audio. Okay, here's the big difference between pulse audio and jack that you need to know when you're trying to record. Pulse audio is meant for basically you turn your computer on and it runs, and you go to YouTube, you go to whatever, you play your MP3s, and it does the thing. Okay. And it's supposed to do the most common. It'll pick the common denominator of what sample rate your hardware is. What it's like. Okay, your operating system is cool with this and that, and it will do this. All right, it'll match. It does all this stuff on the back end that automatically to make your butt so that way, like that choppiness you hear. If you go into jack and you don't have it set up right, you will hear that in your ears when you talk through your microphone. You manually set that up through jack and you tune it, basically, essentially. So that way, because what's happening is your recorder, your software, your DAW, digital audio workstation, which is the app for recording, that when it connects to jack is connected directly to your hardware. And in jack, you set up your buffer size and your sample rate. Sample rate is basically resolution. If you know what resolution is for an image, it's the same thing for audio. It's just as how many slices per second or whatever.
Right.
If your application and your audio and your hardware, like if you have two applications, like one's at 144 or there's like 44.1 and others at like 32, like there has to be some bridge in the middle, and there's software that can do that, but Pulse does not do that well when you have an app that's trying to record at 44.
Okay. So for example, I just opened up the app, audio recorder, simple app. Format, I pick wave, lossless wave 44 kilohertz, right?
Okay.
So are you telling me that I have to download jack to make sure that 44 matches jack's 44? Is that what you're trying?
If you're recording, do you have an option? I haven't messed with audio recorder. So has it?
All right. For example, I'll go to user defined source. Okay.
Okay. What's your sources?
Then I go to additional settings, and my device settings, my sources can be, my mic, my webcam mic, the audio output out of the computer, and I think I had it set for everything in through the mic and out through my, through my earpiece, all through my mic. There was nothing going in through my webcam mic, and I had it set for that at wave, lossless. Okay.
Okay. So like
playback
or what? I don't see. It's weird, like because most of your audio sources, if that simple audio recorder app is able to use jack, it would see all the different things in jack you could connect it to. But if it only sees pulse, see there's bridges for that. And see, this is where we get into the tutorial stuff where it's where you have to kind of
install other software to make this work, or it's just hard to...
The whole sample rate issue with the choppiness is hard to track down through Pulse.
Okay.
It really is when you're trying to plug things in. Jack just, for some reason, because it's so specific and it's set to work, this is your hardware. And then things that work over here in Pulse, there's a bridge that makes it work.
Right.
And it takes a little bit of working you have to understand each component to put it
I
together.
know what you're trying to say. You've got the left side of the bridge and the right side of the bridge, and in the middle of the bridge is a pothole, basically.
Yes, pretty much. You hit a pothole and the audio gets garbaged up. And you'll have that even on Windows with stuff when you try to run like virtual audio cables and stuff. And
all right, no, I was looking for it because it's frustrating. So
it is. Even my interface that works beautifully with Jack. Some applications on Pulse, even OBS. Say I want to just use Pulse audio and connect to my UMC 404 HD, my Behringer 4 input thing. It's a USB interface, class compliant, it shows up, everything sees it. But for some reason, Pulse, in all of its wonkiness, when I record audio in OBS, it's garbage. And you can ask DOS Geek. Him and I went through it one day. But when I use Jack, because Jack can look at the interface and go, hey, 192 kilohertz and this many channels. And then there's an actual Jack bridge, there's actual Jack module in OBS that you can add in. And it just does it. And it's perfect. It's fine.
It sounds like I need to install Jack.
It sounds like if you want to do
I
some
don't
cool
know.
shit. Yeah, you might. You can't. It can't hurt to do it and mess with it, you know. And I would definitely recommend KX Studio repos because that's the guy maintaining it.
KX Studio. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Have you guys ever seen that video of that helicopter spinning, but the video of the blades, it looks like they're not even moving as it starts flying?
Because I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this kind of reminds me of. When the shutter speed matches up with the rotational speed, like they line up, there's no choppiness. But when they're not lined up, you see that choppiness.
Because you'll find a thing like OBS does its own encoding where it can patch into, say I've got the 192 kilohertz running with that Jack module, but it's encoding in 140 in like 44.1 or 48.
That's the
it doesn't have an encoder for anything higher than that, but it can talk to something that can feed it something higher, which is cool.
Yeah, cool.
So it's cool. It's cool.
Wow.
It works.
I like it.
Really cool.
Have you guys ever watched like a video on like a Linux from scratch install? When Scrap was talking about all this with Jack, it was almost like I was watching one of those. I have no idea what was going on.
But man, he knows his stuff.
I loved it though. That was like
that's obvious.
Wow.
If I ever need any of that, I'm calling him.
Well, Scrap was going to, he actually has his own YouTube channel, and he was going to start making YouTube tutorials on all of this. But he got a little busy, so hopefully you get back to it, huh?
Wow, Rocco, no pressure, huh?
Just saying, I mean.
I think that would be awesome if he did that.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lovely explanation.
I needed it.
It takes a little bit of groundwork when you start digging into audio things. I know Rocco's you've been doing this podcast and things and being very simplistic about it and staying off the Jack train for a very long time. And someday you're gonna break when you want to get deeper into it. I think you're gonna break. But I don't think that breaking point's gonna come until Jack gets a little bit easier. Just a smidge.
Yeah.
Just
I might break out my Radio Shack micro tape recorder, put it right here. Just sound through the speaker, sound me talking. There we go.
I think I don't think. I mean, unless somebody makes a program to actually, or not a program maybe, but a script to make Jack easier to set up.
I have a script. I have it in part of my tutorial. There's a tutorial script and a whole file that I build, and it's commented and it tells you what things do and the IO for each little piece, and there's about 5 or 6 little apps to get it basically the way I run it. The way I run my stuff, you can use 3 I mean, you probably do about 2. I think you can do 2 apps.
I just want to record
Basic.
simple podcasts without video,
Yeah.
without using OBS to record everything, and then just edit out the audio. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah. And as
What's
and
QJack?
QJack is garbage. You
Okay.
it really is. I've never
Tell us how
had
you
luck
really
with
feel.
those.
Don't sugarcoat
Garbage.
it.
Short answer.
Garbage, you don't need that.
guys are too shy here. Come on. No.
Okay, so Carla, anybody that wants to jump into Jack, go to KX Studio and install those repos. And there's 2 of them because one depends on the other.
KX.
Even though it says one is for like an older version of Ubuntu, and that one is for newer GCC 5 or whatever. Put both in, and then get Carla and Cadence. And then you have to install.
We need a tutorial.
Yes, there. Now I'm thinking about it, and there's a couple really weird ones that are like just background stuff.
Do I need to speak to Adam too?
But Cadence and Carla will get you started in Jack. That doesn't bridge Pulse because Pulse coexists with Jack.
Okay.
In the way I set it up, but Cadence is the thing that replaces QJack, and then Carla also. It's like Patchage, if you've ever seen Patchage. You have ins and outs, and you draw lines, and that's it. It's super easy, and you can right click and add a plugin and drop it in.
It's really
it's very
it's
graphical.
It's
It's very
dead
graphical
simple.
once you get there.
Order, I think, and just do it.
I can see the exact word that Rocco's thinking. Next.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's like going behind a server and seeing all those wires that nobody's tied in, color coded wise.
Yeah, there's only 45,000 wires. It's simple. We're just going to do this, okay?
Find the one that's plugged in by licking it.
He's got me convinced.
If it shocks you, it's
Hey, wait a minute. Weren't you doing something like that with your power cord a while back?
Look, buddy. Look, buddy.
He knows from experience, Joe, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Play some tunes, man.
What are we
That's
looking
all
at,
right.
pedals?
Okay. I don't mind putting cables from one place to the next. That's my pedal board.
Yay.
Yeah, that's a little too much, okay?
That looks like the engine room.
Soldering kit. We need,
Looks like Michael's keyboards.
Yeah, exactly. Where is Michael tonight anyway?
I don't know.
They look like Michael's keyboards, but clean.
Too much effort. Too much effort, Rocco.
All right. It's late. It's time.
I'm
It's
sorry.
time.
I broke the end of the
It's time.
stream.
You just totally broke it the whole
broke it.
last 20
It's
minutes.
my fault.
So, Zeb, last word.
With all my vapidness.
Last words, check out MX Linux. It seriously rocks.
Nice.
I
Colin.
will.
Ubuntu next. I will somehow get it going. I will.
You will. All right, Matt.
Hopefully.
Enlightenment on Manjaro.
What?
Wow.
Okay. Dolphin, last word.
There you go.
There you go.
MX17. There you go.
Joe, is that your last word?
No, I was just going to say, open mind, open source. That's all.
Lamer.
One of the fastest, stablest operating system, MX.
Wow, MX got a lot of plugs tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
use
think.
MX for my college. It's stable enough for college student.
Nice.
Nice.
Chicken.
if you want the best and nothing less, use Elementary OS.
Oh my gosh. Even has a rhyme for it.
Sorta.
He's been waiting for that.
He's writing jingles for it.
He is such a fanboy.
You think?
Toss.
Thanks to Scrapjaw for at least giving me a clue as to what's going on with the audio thing. So at least now I know.
Scrap be the man.
Yeah.
If you can always at me on the Telegram at my name, Scrapjaw. Just drop me a line and I'll try to get to you.
Okay.
Scrap, last word.
Just because I don't know. I don't have anything fancy after the
You don't
last
need
day.
anything fancy. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be your last word. What do you want to say?
Jack.
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 Get Jack.
Okay. Carl,
Jack.
last word. Uh-oh,
Oh.
you're muted, dude. You're muted.
You're muted.
Hold on.
Oh, wow.
Try it again. Last word, Carl.
No.
No.
Type it in.
Pulse audio.
See,
It's a
people need
audio
me.
problem.
I guess I'm
You need Jack.
There we go.
dude.
How's that?
There you go. All right.
Are they?
What's your last
Are
word,
they?
man?
Gnome is where the heart is. Ooh.
Yes. I love it.
But install Tweak Tool.
Yes, absolutely. That's a must.
And don't add features.
Derek,
Excuse me. Coughing. No.
you all right?
I also want to, yeah, I've had a bad cough.
Coffins
here
for
recently.
dead people.
I want to thank Scrap for the Jack tutorial. I'm going to install it and try to get it working. Excuse me, guys.
At me on Telegram if you need
All right.
anything.
Yeah.
All right. Last word is check out Destination Linux 65 this week, where I haven't announced who we talked to, but we talked to somebody, so check it out. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week.
Peace, guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.